It's the middle of the night in a dark forest somewhere in North America.
Was to meet the Stehalis tribe and to see the dance, the Sasquatch dance.
Fantastic.
4 adults equipped with night vision cameras are standing in complete silence. One of them suddenly whispers, "Did you hear that?" Another begins banging a tree with a stick, like he's trying to send Morse code to the wildlife. A third person lets out a long, haunting howl into the darkness, something the show confidently calls a Bigfoot call.
New and different techniques.
So I never thought I'd be the most normal guy in the room.
Tia, hia, ha, momo.
And the fourth is staring into a thermal camera that reveals what appears to be a warm raccoon. The music becomes dramatic. The camera shakes. Everyone starts running through the forest like they've just heard Godzilla stepping on a twig.
Oh my God, Dana, got something on the flare.
Oh my God.
For about 12 seconds, the show tries very hard to convince you that this raccoon might actually be a 9-foot-tall prehistoric ape. Welcome to Finding Bigfoot, a television series built around one very simple promise. A team of passionate researchers would travel across America to finally prove the existence of the legendary creature known as Bigfoot, or Sasquatch, the most famous mythical animal that somehow manages to avoid every camera, hunter, drone, and tourist with an iPhone. When the show premiered on Animal Planet in 2011, the concept sounded almost reasonable. A group of Bigfoot researchers would investigate sightings, interview witnesses, and explore remote forests in search of evidence of the mysterious creature.
Paranormal beings.
They came to and from this planet.
They're like alien bioengineered creatures.
Within just a few years, the show became one of the network's most watched programs, averaging around 1.2 million viewers per episode. There was only one problem. After 11 seasons, 100 episodes, and nearly a decade of searching, the show ended without ever finding Bigfoot, which raises a slightly uncomfortable question. If a show called Finding Bigfoot never actually finds Bigfoot,
I've been tracking Sasquatches for 25 years.
These animals, in fact, are real.
I've seen them. They're here.
what exactly were we watching all those years? To understand how Finding Bigfoot became one of the strangest long-running experiments in reality television, you have to go back to the early 2000s, a time when cable TV had discovered a very specific strategy. If people liked animals, they would probably also like mysterious animals. Animal Planet, once known for traditional wildlife documentaries,
Do you think there's a Squatch in these woods?
was quietly going through an identity crisis. Real nature programming was expensive, slow to produce, and required things like scientists, research, and actual discoveries. Reality television, on the other hand, was cheap, dramatic, and didn't require a single confirmed fact. So the network began experimenting with a new kind of show. Programs about monsters, cryptids, and mysterious creatures supposedly hiding in the wilderness. And in 2011, that experiment produced Finding Bigfoot.
Maybe almost 8 or 10 years now. I'm kind of surprised it's taken us this long to get here, but we're here now, and that's all that matters.
The show followed 4 members of the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, or BFRO, one of the most well-known groups dedicated to investigating Bigfoot sightings. The team included Matt Moneymaker, James Bobo Fay, Cliff Barackman, and Randy Holland, who served as the group's resident skeptic. Their mission sounded simple enough.
Great habitat. With all this uninhabited land, I can understand why people might believe that there's an undiscovered creature living here.
Travel across the United States, investigate eyewitness reports, and gather evidence that Sasquatch might actually exist. And at the time, the concept was genuinely compelling. Bigfoot had already been part of American folklore for decades. Stories of giant footprints, strange howls in the forest, and massive hairy figures disappearing between trees had circulated for generations.
Sasquatches have something to do with the paranormal, and this, Mount Shasta, is one of the main areas of their focus.
The legend was cemented even further in 1967 with the famous Patterson-Gimlin film, a shaky piece of footage that supposedly showed a towering creature walking through the woods. Whether people believed it or not, Bigfoot had become one of the most famous cryptids in the world, and audiences were curious. Within just a couple of years, Finding Bigfoot had become one of Animal Planet's most successful programs. Episodes regularly pulled in around 1.2 million viewers. Impressive numbers for a show about 4 adults wandering through forests looking for a mythical ape. On paper, the formula seemed perfect.
Paranormal aspect about them. I mean, for as long as people have been talking about Bigfoot, people have been saying, hey, there's something supernatural going on here.
A charismatic team, a legendary creature, and thousands of miles of remote wilderness to search. But hidden inside that premise was a problem that would eventually define the entire show. because the entire series depended on a discovery that was extremely unlikely to ever happen.
There's a lot of weird phenomena around him. UFOs, orbs, ghosts, Bigfoots, they're all there.
And if Bigfoot never appeared, the show would still have to keep looking for him anyway. At first, Finding Bigfoot followed a very predictable formula. Every episode began with the team arriving in a small town somewhere in North America where locals claimed they had seen something enormous moving through the woods. Witnesses described giant footprints, terrifying screams echoing through the forest, or a massive hairy figure disappearing between the trees at night.
Cannot measure it. So to try to be objective and put a scientific slant on it.
And then came the main event, the night investigation. Armed with thermal cameras, flashlights, and an impressive amount of optimism, the team would head deep into the forest, hoping to provoke Bigfoot into revealing itself. Sometimes they knocked on trees because, according to Bigfoot folklore, Sasquatch communicates through what can best be described as woodland percussion. Sometimes they attempted Bigfoot calls, which mostly sounded like four adults yelling into the darkness like they had just lost their car keys in the forest.
Bigfoot on the side of it, a UFO saucer. Essentially, this is the mystery machine for Bigfooters.
And occasionally, they left food out as bait, which raised the slightly concerning possibility that they weren't searching for Bigfoot at all, but were about to attract the angriest bear in North America. Eventually, something would happen, a branch snapping somewhere in the distance. Everyone would freeze, the music would become dramatic. Someone would whisper, "Did you hear that?"
I didn't get it, did you? No. Didn't hear it, but we're listening.
And then the camera would start shaking as the team ran through the forest chasing something. Every episode built suspense the same way, and every episode ended the same way. Something strange had happened, but there wasn't enough evidence to confirm it was Bigfoot. For the first few seasons, audiences were happy to play along. The mystery was entertaining, the hosts had good chemistry, and viewers weren't necessarily expecting Bigfoot to walk directly into the camera. The fun was in the possibility that maybe, just maybe, the next episode might reveal something extraordinary. But after enough seasons, a pattern started to become impossible to ignore. The show wasn't building toward a discovery. It was building toward the exact same ending every single time. After dozens of investigations, every episode seemed to conclude with the same carefully worded explanation. We can't prove it was Bigfoot, but it might have been.
Multi-use helmet.
I got some real bad news for you, Bobo.
What?
All you're doing is amplifying the signal.
That's when the first cracks began to appear. Behind the scenes, tensions between the cast and producers also started surfacing. During the early seasons, producers reportedly staged certain moments to make investigations appear more dramatic. In one infamous incident, producers filmed scenes involving a horse and edited the footage in a way that suggested the team had encountered something mysterious in the woods. When the hosts discovered the manipulation, they were reportedly furious and threatened to quit the show if similar tricks continued. The incident revealed a fundamental conflict at the heart of Finding Bigfoot. On one side, you had people who genuinely wanted to investigate Bigfoot sightings. On the other side, you had television producers whose job was to make sure something exciting happened every week, even if reality needed a little help. And reality TV has never been particularly shy about bending reality. Meanwhile, criticism outside the show was also growing. Scientists and skeptics began pointing out the obvious problem.
We'll be at a point that when we howl, it'll go out the maximum number of directions or maximum number of canyons.
A program that presented itself as an investigation into a mysterious creature was often treating speculation as if it were meaningful evidence. Animal Planet was already facing backlash for similar programming. In 2012, the network aired a documentary-style special called Mermaids, the body found that suggested mermaids might be real. The program was presented so convincingly that government agencies eventually had to publicly clarify that mermaids do not exist, which is not usually something scientists expect to include in official statements. Finding Bigfoot existed in that same strange television ecosystem, where entertainment was often presented with the aesthetic of scientific investigation. The show tried to balance this by including Renee Holland, a scientist who served as the team's skeptic. Holland frequently challenged the evidence and questioned the more enthusiastic claims made by the other hosts, but her presence also highlighted the central problem. Half the show seemed dedicated to proving Bigfoot existed. The other half quietly admitted the evidence never really held up. And eventually, the internet noticed. Online communities began joking that the show should have been called Never Finding Bigfoot. Clips of the team sprinting through the woods because a twig snapped somewhere in the distance began circulating online, turning what once looked like suspense into accidental comedy. Even the hosts occasionally became part of the drama. In 2015, Matt Moneymaker publicly criticized another cryptid hunting show, Mountain Monsters, calling it fake on social media. Members of that show's cast fired back, mocking Finding Bigfoot and suggesting it should have been called Losing Bigfoot. The argument played out on Twitter, turning what should have been a niche television rivalry into a strange internet spectacle. But the biggest issue never changed. Season after season, the team kept searching forests, interviewing witnesses, and reacting dramatically to unexplained noises in the dark. And every single time, the conclusion remained exactly the same: no Bigfoot.
Keith Dunquist, did you hear it?
Negative, nothing at all.
By the later seasons, the tension had completely evaporated. The audience already knew how every episode would end. What once felt like a mystery had slowly turned into a routine. And when a mystery becomes predictable, it stops being a mystery at all. By the time the series reached its final special in 2018, Bigfoot was still missing. And the show that promised to find him had quietly become something else entirely. A long-running demonstration of how far television can stretch a mystery before the audience stops expecting answers. By the later seasons of Finding Bigfoot, the biggest mystery wasn't where Bigfoot was. It was how the show was still pretending it might find him. Because once you look at the structure of the series, something becomes obvious.
Cliff, you okay?
No, I'm okay.
The show was never really designed to solve the mystery. It was designed to keep the mystery going. Every episode followed almost the exact same cycle. A dramatic eyewitness story from someone who swore they saw a massive hairy figure near their property, maybe a strange footprint, maybe an unexplained sound in the woods. Then came the nighttime investigation. Flashlights, thermal cameras, suspenseful music, 4 people slowly walking through the forest, reacting to every snapped twig within a 2-mile radius. Sooner or later, something would happen. A branch cracking, a rustling sound, a vague heat signature on the thermal camera. Everyone freezes. Someone whispers, "Did you hear that?" And suddenly the team starts sprinting through the forest like Bigfoot just clocked in for his night shift. But the ending was always the same. Something strange had happened. Something unexplained had occurred. But there wasn't enough evidence to prove it was Bigfoot. And that created a strange paradox at the center of the show. If the team ever proved Bigfoot didn't exist, the show would immediately end.
Sort of this old ghost town. And ghost towns just aren't for ghosts. Bigfoot's hanging around these kind of places too.
And if they proved Bigfoot did exist, the show would also end. Because congratulations, you found Bigfoot. Mystery solved. So the only possible outcome was the one viewers kept getting: permanent uncertainty. The team kept searching, the audience kept watching, and nothing ever changed. Eventually, the suspense disappeared. Viewers already knew how every investigation would end. What once felt mysterious slowly turned into routine. And the internet noticed. Clips of the team yelling Bigfoot calls into empty forests started circulating online. Dramatic moments became memes highlighting how quickly the investigators jumped from a random noise to possible Sasquatch encounter. What used to look like suspense now looked like accidental comedy, which reveals the uncomfortable truth about Finding Bigfoot. The show was never really about discovering a creature, it was about keeping the legend alive. Because legends don't need evidence, they just need another episode next week. And yet, despite everything, Finding Bigfoot wasn't a complete failure. In fact, in a strange way, it almost worked. Because if you look past the thermal cameras, the dramatic music, and the endless nights of yelling into forests, the show did manage to capture something genuinely compelling: people's fascination with mystery. Bigfoot has been part of North American folklore for generations, a creature that lives somewhere between mythology and possibility. The show tapped directly into that cultural curiosity and turned it into entertainment that millions of people watched for nearly a decade. The hosts themselves were also part of the appeal. They weren't cynical TV personalities pretending to care about the mystery. They were enthusiasts, sometimes overly enthusiastic, who genuinely enjoyed the search. Even skeptics admitted the team had a certain charm, turning what could have been a ridiculous premise into something oddly watchable.
Thermal imager, and it's way dark, right? And I guess I just got a little bit close to the edge because my foot went down on a piece of metal, and so did I.
But ultimately, the show revealed something deeper about modern television. Mysteries are powerful. They attract attention, build communities, and keep audiences engaged. But if a mystery is stretched long enough, Without answers, it eventually stops being mysterious and starts becoming predictable. And that's exactly what happened to Finding Bigfoot. The show didn't end because Bigfoot was finally discovered. It ended because the audience had already figured out the ending. Which leaves us with one final question. If a group of investigators can spend 11 seasons searching for Bigfoot without finding anything, maybe the real mystery isn't whether Bigfoot exists. Maybe the real mystery is how television managed to find 100 episodes of it.
There's something up there that's not small. It's either two things with a...
Anyway, like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments which cryptid reality show should investigate absolutely nothing for the next decade.